Welcome back, everyone. So this is going to be another exciting video from BBISHOPPCM's world. Exciting is what I do. Really though, I'm 36 and shit like this excites me, I guess. I don't know. So this is really just a review of the Toro lawnmower that I bought in, I bought it in the very late fall, I believe, of, or was it, because, you know, with the coronavirus, honestly, my timeline, my mental timeline is all jacked up, because I could have sworn I bought this maybe in February, and, you know, I just don't know. I don't know when I bought it. I'll have to check the receipt. But nevertheless, I've gotten one season out of it so far. And I thought I'd talk about this machine and what I like and what I don't like. Toro still makes a very similar machine. This mower is by far is not obsolete or anything. It's still it's basically an older version of whatever they're selling right now. This is the Recycler 22-inch SmartStow machine. The SmartStow feature I don't really use, but it allows you to store the lawnmower vertically and very easily. Let me show you how that works real quick. So on the SmartStow machine, you just pull the bag off, and you release the handle catches, or the handle locks, fold the handle back, relock it, and then just grab it with one hand, just like that. Easy peasy. And you can stuff it in the corner of a basement, a garage. You can even put it in your living room if you're one of those people. I personally store it on its wheels because I really don't trust the long-term effectiveness of the oil and fuel cap seals. I know that they can eventually fail, and I would hate to come down to my basement to a basement floor covered in either gasoline or oil or both. That's just my personal preference. So that feature isn't really a selling point for me, but again, I got this machine at half its retail price because it was leftover from the previous season, and it wasn't really even a planned purchase. I actually had a lawnmower when I bought this, but I did the math, and at half price of $220 is what I paid for it. And with the residual value in my old lawnmower, I got this mower for about $120 after it was all said and done. A brand new, fairly decent quality, you know, name brand machine for $120. I mean, who wouldn't do that? So, and the machine that I had, for those of you who didn't see the previous video, was a 2000, I think it was a 2011 model Cub Cadet. So, and the Cub Cadet wasn't a bad machine. It just was very poorly put together, very poorly designed, and I just wasn't really happy with it. It did the job, sure, but this one does it better, and it does. One of the things I like about this Toro is the self-pace, or personal pace, self-propulsion. Unlike most lawnmowers where you have to manually select the drive speed, this one does it for you. The more pressure you apply on this handle, the faster it moves until it reaches its top speed. And it does that not through any complicated means of maybe a friction wheel and a drive plate or anything like that. And it's not even a variable pulley. What it does is and this is kind of weak, but it works. It uses the variable belt tension to adjust the drive speed. So really, when you're pushing it along and you're running it at a partial speed, it's allowing the belt to slip. Fortunately, the belt is fairly easy to access and replace, so when it does eventually burn up, it's not that big a deal. It is a fully height adjustable model. This is basically your full featured, you know, push mower. It is a rear bagger with the option of mulching the grass while you cut. You can just take the bag off, the door closes, and then you just close this flap here, which forces the grass to recirculate underneath where it gets mulched by the mulching blade, which is included. You also have the option for a side discharge if you so choose to do so. It did come with a side discharge attachment, which I have not used. But open up the store right here, and the discharge fixture or attachment just clips on right there. Unlike the Cub Cadet, this is what I like about the Toro machine. It is built a little better than the Cub Cadets and the MTDs of the current generation. MTD lawnmowers today generally have a steel deck. Only the center part of the deck is steel, and the front and rear sections are plastic. They're a molded plastic and bolted to the deck. What that does is it creates a failure point where there doesn't need to be one. Plastic, as we all know, over time it can deform, it can strip out if I believe the bolts are threaded into the plastic itself, and it can crack over time, and it's just not ideal. Now, from a homeowner's perspective, if I walk into a store and I look at a lawnmower and I push the handle down, and the entire rear section flexes or deflects about half an inch before the front wheels lift off the ground, to me that does not signify a very well built machine, and I can see that flexing over time and breaking. Now, whether that's a reality, I don't know. But the Toro, in contrast, uses a steel axle support and a steel handle support. So the handle is bolted to steel, which is bolted to the steel deck rather than plastic. I think it's better. I'm not an expert, nor do I pretend to be one. And likewise, the front wheels are bolted to a steel deck directly. Of course, to the metal adjusters. Obviously, those have to be a separate part. But what I'm trying to say is this machine is metal where it counts. The MTD that I had previously was plastic in all the wrong places. That would make a great country song. And like most modern lawnmowers, it does have an integrated deck washing system. Effectiveness, actually, it is pretty effective. Let me show you what I mean. So why don't we go ahead and convert it to storage mode. Now, one of the things I want to point out before I get too far ahead of myself is it is important, if you have a mower like this, a modern mower with a lot of moving parts, a lot of sliding, moving parts, you want to make sure that you lubricate things on a regular basis. That is, every season, put a couple drops of oil down this cable here. It'll eventually work its way down. Same with there's two cables up here. There's the baling of the engine brake cable and the drive engagement cable. You want to make sure that those cables are lubricated properly. If not, it could eventually cause a problem where the cable sheathing will seize or rust and cause all kinds of nastiness. So let's lock the cable and flip it up. Okay, let's take a look underneath. So, what was I saying? The deck washing system, this is it, and that's how I wash the deck, is I connect a garden hose to it, and there's a nozzle right here. And what it does is it uses the blade to agitate that water. So you have the engine running while you do this, and the blade just splashes that water everywhere, and it washes all the grass out. And this is important, especially on a steel deck, because when you have a buildup of grass and debris, it creates a place for moisture to collect, and it causes the deck to eventually rot out. So as long as you regularly wash the deck, it shouldn't really be a problem. Now, obviously, it doesn't get into this area here, which is why I cleaned the mower thoroughly, and then I sprayed it with fluid film, so that fluid film would provide an oily, rust-resistant barrier, which would prevent rust from forming in the front section and in the rear section. You'll see the axle is covered in it. This is a drive shaft. So like I said, this is the very simple transmission drive for the rear wheels. Now, getting into the weeds a little bit, so to speak, this section here is one of the big wear points of this machine. And I've watched videos and reviews and such of older versions of this mower, and they're known to have a couple of problems with the drive end. There's a pinion gear here and here. They're made out of steel, but the plastic gears that are molded into the wheels themselves, they have a tendency to wear out. So basically what I'm saying is, on this generation, the gears are metal, but the wheels are plastic, and that creates a wearable item. So the wheels themselves are going to end up being they may end up needing to be replaced after a few seasons. Now, for a lawnmower, wheels that wear out, that's not such a big deal. But these you can only probably get through a Toro dealer, and they may be a little pricey. One of the great things about the self-store or the vertical storage models is that it makes it a lot easier to change the blade. Simply zap that bolt off, blade comes off, pop in a new blade, and you're off and running. I will be changing this blade rather than sharpening it. I suck at sharpening lawnmower blades. I'm just going to buy a new blade. For what it costs, I'll just throw a blade on it every year. Not a big deal. But if you're good at sharpening mower blades, it's easy to do. So I have had one problem with this machine so far, and it was actually with the drive mechanism. What had happened was, see, Toro didn't use ball bearings or sealed bearings to support the drive shaft. Rather, they used a sleeve-type bearing, which, when exposed to water or moisture, can rust, causing the rear wheels to almost lock up, so making it very difficult to push, and kind of strains the drive mechanism a little bit. One thing to watch out for. So what I had to do is I actually took all four wheels off. I greased not only the axle bolts, but I also loosened the drive shaft and slid it in either direction, cleaning the shaft itself, the surface, of rust, and applying a coating of grease. So that's one thing to watch out for with these mowers. I wasn't expecting that to be a problem, but it was actually fairly early on. What had happened was I had mowed the yard, and then I washed the mower completely, and some water obviously didn't escape. So what I'm going to do over the winter, when I have some free time, I'm going to pull the entire drive unit out and check it over and put a much better quality grease than what I had used initially. So just word to the wise, that could happen to you. Happened to me. Now, on to the fun stuff. So, once upon a time, Briggs & Stratton built some of the best engines America had to offer. As a matter of fact, many of those engines are still in service to this very day. And I'm talking about engines that were built as far back as the 1960s. Briggs & Stratton made my favorite small engines. They just were impossible to kill, and even when you did kill them, you could bring them back pretty easily. Those days are over. This is what Briggs & Stratton is building today. While this engine does start on the first pull as advertised, it definitely is not a quality motor. And here's why. Briggs & Stratton has been having some financial difficulties, some incredibly difficult financial difficulties. They're actually, I believe, in bankruptcy right now. And unfortunately, it isn't entirely their fault. I blame the Chinese engine makers for that. The Chinese engine manufacturers, such as Lonson, Linhai, there's a whole bunch of them. They have been basically dumping engines in the market at what could potentially be below manufacturing cost. Now, whether the Chinese engines are good quality or not isn't really what I'm trying to question, because I actually have a Chinese motor on my snowblower, and it is a good engine. I have nothing bad to say about it. It starts every time. It's torquey. It's very, very, very reliable. However, it's come at a cost, and that has the cost is really a big part of the American manufacturing sector. Small engines are part of that. Specifically Briggs & Stratton. See, Briggs & Stratton cannot produce engines at a price point that can compete with the Chinese. Unfortunately, Briggs & Stratton's troubles aren't entirely on their own shoulders. In order to keep costs down, the manufacturers such as Toro, MTD, etc., the ones that aren't owned by Briggs & Stratton, they have been purchasing engines from China and providing the service and support. They've been shouldering the service and support that you won't get from a Chinese engine manufacturer, such as Lonson. Toro has developed a relationship with Lonson, and they are now Toro's premier engine supplier. But they still produce machines that have Briggs & Stratton engines on them, and this is one of them. Like I said, it's not really entirely Briggs & Stratton's fault. They cannot compete on price with the Chinese. It just cannot be done. So what they've done is they're now producing engines, or they were producing engines in the US made from components that were cast over in Asia. And they've also cut costs in many ways, and it really hurts because the castings of the block castings themselves, specifically the base of the engine, are so thin that they can crack very easily. They have, reduced the materials inside the engine to within millimeters of their lives. Basically underbuilding the entire motor. They've replaced a lot of good quality casted components and stamped steel components with plastic. Now, specifically, the starter cup on this engine is made of plastic, and it could break at any time without any warning. It is a replaceable part, but still, it's very annoying to have to tear your engine apart to replace a part that should have never failed to begin with. I wouldn't say this is a bad motor, but they're not really built for longevity anymore. Not like they used to be. I have a 1937 Briggs & Stratton engine on my bench in my garage that I've just restored, and it still runs. Can't say that this engine will run in 60, 70, 80 years from now. Hell, if I get 10 years out of it, I'll be happy. But this engine does have some pretty modern technology built into it, such as the vapor recovery system that is integrated into the fuel tank. If you look at the design of the fuel tank and where it enters the airbox, this little hose here, this little fitting, there is the top of the fuel tank is double walled, and there is I believe a carbon canister built into this. So when the engine is started, it creates a small amount of vacuum and allows the fuel vapor to vent into the airbox. They didn't do that up until recently. That's a fairly new thing. This engine also features an automatic choke that isn't very dissimilar to the automatic chokes that were used in their older motors from the 1980s and 90s. The automatic choke works off of a separate flag. So this uses the Briggs & Stratton's governors are based on a wind flap that uses the air that the flywheel pushes through the motor for cooling purposes to deflect the flag away or closer to the flywheel. That's how it regulates engine speed, but it's also how it regulates the automatic choke. So when the engine is sitting like right now, you can't really see it, but the choke should be in the closed position, and it definitely is. It's right there. You can see the choke plate. As soon as this engine starts spinning and there's wind produced by the flywheel, that choke opens right up and it stays open for the duration of the run cycle. So consequently, with this engine, there is no need for a choke lever. It also doesn't use a primer bulb. So far, it has started on the first pull basically every time I've started it. First pull starts right up, no issues. The carburetor is built entirely of plastic. There's a lot of dust in there, but that's okay. The carburetor body is all plastic, but Briggs has been doing that since the 90s. That's nothing new. Let's put this back together again. Fortunately, if the carburetor were to ever fail, it's not a very expensive part to replace. Again, everything on this engine can be fixed, but these are things that really shouldn't fail on a mower. But one of the things that I've got to stress is if you buy one of these and it has the Briggs engine that says No oil changes. Just check and add. This right here, no. Absolutely no. If you want to get more than a couple years out of your lawnmower, you will not heed that advice. You will change your oil at least every season, and no later than that. Because I have a very small yard, and I had to mow it about once a week for the duration of the summer. We didn't really have a lot of rain, so it didn't really get, maybe once every other week in some cases. We had a very dry summer, but I was pretty much out there about once a week mowing my lawn. My entire lot is about almost 9,000 square feet. So it's not a big lot, about 0.19 acres, with a 1,040 square foot house sitting on top of it, plus I think a 600 square foot garage, plus a 200 square foot breezeway. So we're not talking a lot of space here, not a lot of lawn. So what I'm getting at is this mower wasn't really used a whole lot. If I had an acre or more, it'd be a different story. So I changed the oil after one season. The oil that came out of this lawnmower was absolutely disgusting. It was probably one of the worst batches of oil I've ever seen come out of a small engine. It had break-in stuff. It was full of glitter, and that's normal. You've got break-in metals, and you've got engine assembly lube in there, which is a shiny. It's what produces those materials produce that glittery look to the oil. It looked kind of pretty, actually. It matched the color of my car, which is a charcoal gray metallic. The oil was gross. Now, Briggs & Stratton wants you to leave that oil in the engine for the duration of the life of the engine. Now, that's where they get you. Now, you think about that for a second. For the life of the engine. What is the life of the engine supposed to be? It depends on who you ask. If you ask the homeowner, they're going to probably tell you, oh, I might get 10 or 15 years out of it. If you ask Briggs & Stratton what the life of the engine is, they're going to tell you it's the warranty period. No, really. That's what we're talking about here. The life of the engine is the warranty period. How long is the warranty? 1 year? 2 years? Think about it. So, if you want this engine to last the warranty period, you don't have to change the oil. But if you want it to last any longer than that, realistically though, you can go several years without changing your lawnmower's oil. But what that does is it creates more engine wear. The engine will run less efficiently as it wears down, and it will burn more oil. So that means you're going to be putting in, again, check and add. You have to check the oil. Never run it dry. But you're going to be adding oil to this engine more and more frequently until you finally realize that it's smoking you out as you're mowing your lawn. You know, it's not going to just catastrophically fail because you didn't change the oil, for 2 years or 3 years, but it will reduce the life of the engine dramatically. So, after seeing, Briggs & Stratton's claim to fame is, we use the best oils and we manufacture them differently so we don't have to change. No. Don't buy into it. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Change the oil. It doesn't cost It doesn't cost much. Buy a quart of oil is what? $3, $4? Do it once a season, and the engine will last a lot longer than Briggs & Stratton wants it to. There is no drain plug. So to change the oil, you simply, even with you can even do this with a full tank of gas, but you basically just warm the engine up, get yourself a little drain pan or something, pull the oil cap off, tip the mower to its side, the oil runs out into the drain pan. And then you figure out how much oil came out of that engine. I actually use a measuring cup. So if 15 ounces of oil comes out, and it's at the full mark when I start, 15 ounces of clean oil goes back in. Real simple stuff. Real simple stuff. And Briggs & Stratton is so confident in this check and add bullshit that they actually sell a kit that lets you pump the oil out with a hose. It's a little canister. They sell them at Harbor Freight. And you just basically suck the oil out with vacuum and put new oil back into it. without tipping the mower at all. It's probably the easier way to do it. But that's how confident they are in this check and add bullshit. And I call it what it is. It's bullshit. There is no such thing as an engine that never needs an oil change. There is no such thing as a transmission that never needs a fluid flush or a fluid change. It's just marketing. They're trying to sell you on, oh, look, honey, this mower doesn't need an oil change, but this one does. That's what they're doing. Oh, well, let's buy the one that doesn't need an oil change. That way, honey, I never have to change the oil. And I can just watch NASCAR all weekend. Really? Don't be lazy. Change your oil. It'll last longer. The rest of this mower is built pretty competently. I have had no issues with it. None. And I have a very hilly yard. So aside from a little bit of maintenance here and there, oh, that's the other thing. The air filter. Did you see how clean that filter was? Look at that. It's like brand new. Look at that. Brand new. That's because I changed it. See, after one season of use in this tiny little yard, that filter was so clogged when I took it out, I'm like, holy crap. It was absolutely packed with dust. So it was $9 at my local auto parts store. $9, new filter. You know, just stuff like that. You got to take care of the equipment. As for the spark plug, I'll probably change it maybe after 3 seasons or so. The spark plugs don't wear out that fast on these engines. I'll probably get 2, maybe 3 seasons out of it, and then I'll change it out. So, when I was a kid and I used to mow lawns, I would change my spark plug, air filter, and oil every season. But I also mowed a lot of lawns, too. And they were small lawns, but still. You take care of your machine, it takes care of you. And that's my review of the Toro SmartStow Recycler 22-inch. I just use it as a standard rear bagger mower, and I'm very happy with it. Now, if this was more of a planned purchase, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. If I had been planning on buying a mower, hell, if I had been planning on buying a mower, I would just go buy a used one, a really good quality used one, and I'd just fix it and keep using it. But if I were in the market for a mower, let's just say, I wouldn't have bought this machine. I would have bought something a little bit nicer. I would have bought the aluminum deck model, and that's what I would have purchased. So, anyway, I gotta go.